Tulsi, honey, what are you doing? What are you doing, honey? You trying to like start drama by claiming there's anti-white racism going on? Come on, what are you doing? This is shit recording? Okay, yeah. This is the newest ruckus on Twitter, which is a pretty funny tweet. Because Lori Lightfoot she's bad, but she's almost so bad she's good, in that she's entertainingly bad. So I'm not sure I actually wanted to resign. But this tweet was interesting because there's not many big accounts that claim anti-white racism. It's more of like a maybe fringe or conservative thing. But people get really mad when you bring it up because they say you can't be racist against white people. There's no systems that are racist against white people. And if you hate white people, that's not racism. That's prejudice, supposedly. So I think it's all retarded. Clearly, you can individually be racist against white people. And although there hasn't been mass atrocities against white people as a group for being white, I mean, yes, individual groups of white people like the Poles or other groups of white people, but not explicitly for being white or having white skin. There hasn't been, like a white Holocaust, despite what people on the alt-right say. Or they didn't, I guess maybe the Arabs did, but recently it was Europeans that dominated the world, who have been the privileged ones. So there hasn't been the same level of atrocities there's been against blacks, brown people, third worlders, Jews, whatever. But I still think you can be racist against white people. And certainly you could start being racist against white people. Who knows where that leads? Nowhere good. Because when you're racist against people, it incites a reaction. And what's that reaction going to be? It's not very good for national cohesiveness. But I noticed in this war with Israel, so I'm not really an expert in, I forget the term for it, but the new concept of racism. Damn it, I should have it memorized by now. But basically, black people are at the bottom. I don't know, blacks and Native Americans are at the bottom. So they've been disadvantaged by structural racism, which is obviously true in the context of U.S. history. White people have had white privilege or dominated others. So you can't be racist against white people in this concept, in this paradigm. You can only be racist against the disadvantaged. But it was interesting with the war on Israel. Everyone was talking about Zionism and the Jews. There seems to be a big conflict on if that applies to the Jews or not, because the Jews have been discriminated against and had that structural racism or discrimination against them. But at the same time, in at least American culture, in the Western world, they have been advantaged in a lot of ways, or at least been successful compared to other groups. So how do you analyze that in this concept of the new way that the left and progressives and woke people look at racism? It's almost like they're saying you can't be racist against Jews because Jews have the upper hand in the West and in Israel. And a lot of Jews or Zionists are saying it's anti-Semitic that there's 100 Islamic states and 150 Christian states. But how is it not anti-Semitic to say Zionism is a bogus concept or Zionism is immoral? You mean the Jews can't have one little goddamn state? So it's interesting in this framework to evaluate that. basically, like the Palestinians are basically saying we can't be anti-Semitic, we're being oppressed. So the structures are all anti-Palestinian, they're not anti-Jewish, so we can't be anti-Jewish or anti-Semitic. So it seems like in this concept of the new way of looking at racism, virtually all these woke people agree you can't be racist against white people, and at least half of them or something like that are saying you in a lot of these concepts, or basically it seems like they're saying, you know, only white people can be anti-Semitic for the most part. Jews have basically been put in the oppressor class with white people. So, although not treated quite the same in a lot of these concepts, the treatment seems to be similar. Wanting to end the state of Israel is not anti-Semitic because it's an oppressor, colonial, almost white supremacist state, they would say in some cases. Now, while I don't think it's anti-Semitic to criticize Bibi Netanyahu or the state of Israel, I do think the judgment is different for being Jewish and or I guess some would see them as white because it's largely white and the people in power generally are white appearing, like Bibi Netanyahu, who's I think his family's from Poland, I believe. So it's just interesting to see the battle between these concepts. But they're fighting really hard against this post to make this anti-white concept. They're mocking it. They just don't accept it. Which seems much similar to saying denying the Jews a homeland is anti-Semitic, or being against Zionism as a concept is anti-Semitic. It seems similar to saying you can't be racist against white people. So there's some similarities there. The difference is woke people definitely recognize anti-Semitism exists. They'll largely say it comes out of white supremacy, which that's kind of where it originated from. But obviously others have picked up and ran with it in the Arab world, in the black community, but they're much less likely to call that out because, well, can a black person be anti-Semitic? I mean, they're structurally oppressed, right? So they're just expressing their prejudice, and maybe they have that prejudice against white people and Jews because they've been oppressed by such people. They loop Jews together with white people, at least in the United States context, because virtually most Jews in the United States are white, or they appear white. They're similar to white people. So they'll say they're the oppressor class because they're white appearing, even if they are Jewish and can be potentially subjugated for that in the past or in other countries. In the United States concept, they have white supremacy, or they have white privilege. So this mapping doesn't make sense. I wish it did make more sense, but the stupid argumentation about it is kind of interesting. So I'm just kind of curious to see if something like anti-white racism is going to stick. I'm not sure it will in the mainstream, because the woke people are going to fight back against it vociferously, it seems. At the same time, it'll be interesting to see if, you know, supporting Palestinian liberation and the elimination of the state of Israel, if that's strictly labeled as anti-Semitic in woke culture, because it seems half and half, maybe, or even like people are sticking with the Palestinian side, say no, it's legitimate to want to eliminate the state of Israel because it's a white colonial oppressor state. Or even these attacks on Jews in New York City and stuff. I mean, some people have spoken out against that. some people are more willing to sweep that under the rug in the same way they were when Black Lives Matter attacked white diners. Now they're attacking Jewish diners. They're kind of looping them together, it seems, or they don't really even know. And then I was going to say one last thing. What was I going to say? Come on. I don't know. It'll just be interesting to see how they treat these phenomenon going forward, or how things might change. If they take more of the Palestinian side or the Israeli side, because these people are acting so ridiculous. So it almost seems like Jews and whites are in the same boat as far as this woke culture goes, in a lot of ways. Because who's at the top? What's the oppressor class? It's white people, and then it's people that kind of adopt. You can't make yourself white if you're not white, but say like Asians, they have, their lifestyle is more similar to white people in the United States, I would say, than say blacks or even Hispanics, because they meld into the dominant culture, the dominant white culture, I would say, along with other groups like Jews, maybe other quote non-white people, non-white groups that have melded into the larger white dominant culture. I wish we could get to a point where we treat all groups equally. Like if you say, I don't want to speak to any fucking white people, that's seen as just as bad as saying, I don't want to speak to any fucking non-white people. Right? I mean, that's the society I want to be living in. Saying I don't like whites and Jews is the same, or saying I don't like white people is the same as bad as saying I don't like black people, Jews, Hispanics, whatever. I don't think we're going to get there, but I hope we can at least move in that direction. Yeah, these are just my thoughts on this issue.